My name is Robert Sims, and this is the class or course, Application in Organizational Leadership. And my assignment today is to do the presentation, the discipline of self-development. And my subtopic or my subtitle is Finding and Walking in Your Sweet Spot. Self-development has a certain look. There's certain characteristics for self-development. And self-development looks like a lifelong learner. So anybody that is on a quest to do self-development, they are a lifelong learner. And number two, they have an unlearning curve. So a lot of what they do is learning, but the majority of what they're doing is unlearning. So they're trying to take away thought patterns and ways of thinking that they learned over the years. And they have to learn the proper way of doing things, the proper way of thinking, the proper way of assessing the things in their life. A lifelong learner has certain practices. So not only are they a lifelong learner, and they are intentional in unlearning the wrong things. They are intentional. Number one is they're being intentional about learning. They're not random with advancing their level of understanding of new information. They have a thirst and a quest and a curiosity towards new information. And number two, their learning journey exposes them to new ideas. They're not arthritic in their thinking. They're not stagnant in their thinking. They're always curious. There's a level of curiosity, almost a childlike curiosity to lifelong learners. Many of them are driven to understand emerging worlds. So they want to understand things that may not even be in the context of their level of expertise or in their genre, the thing that their field of study. But they're curious to things that's even outside of their core understanding and core knowledge. So they are driven to understand emerging things, and why they do that, one of the ways they do that is hanging around teenagers and young college students. These young people are the guides into this new world of creativity and innovation. So innovation and creativity comes through these different avenues. Another thing, a person that disciplines themselves in self-development, they're intentional. Number one, they're a lifelong learner. Number two, they're intentional on unlearning the wrong things. Number three, their lifelong learning has practices. And this one, I love this one, is they have a learning network. So these people that are lifelong learners and are on a quest to personal or self-development, many of them join or even create intentional learning networks. One of the things that I've always been a reader. I read. People that are self-development driven are always reading. The average person has a certain level of reading. I think the average person reads 2 books a year. Well, the lifelong learner, they're reading much more than that. They might be reading 2 books a month or even 2 books a week. And so the lifelong learner has an intentional journey towards learning and towards being developed. And so one of the things that I've done, I think back in 2003, I joined the Dale Carnegie course. So I went through the Dale Carnegie course and I did that. And it was such an enriching developmental journey that I went through. I was able to learn some different things that really helped me to develop in myself. So creative learning networks. Right now, I've just recently joined Toastmasters to develop my speaking skills, to develop the expertise in doing some of the things that I'm called to do. And so a lifelong or developing learning networks, creative learning networks, even if they don't find them, they may even create them. Now, there are 5 ways that a lifelong learner or someone that is building self-development in their own lives. And there are 5 things that allow them to build strengths in these areas to be able to develop self-development and become a lifelong learner that has these things accomplished in their lives. Number 1 is a sense of accomplishment. This is where they strengthen themselves as they develop. When they have a sense of accomplishment, when they set benchmarks for their lives, that sense of accomplishment has great dividends. They're not just look like they're on a lifelong journey and they never accomplish anything. Having blue ribbons, so to speak, to have that, I want to gain certain things. Right now, I'm in school right now, and one of my sense of accomplishments each month is to complete my classes. That's a sense of accomplishment. And at the end of this time, in the fall, I will have my bachelor's degree in Christian leadership. That's a simple sense of accomplishment. Number 2 is the glimpses of excellence. Every now and then you'll get in your sweet spot and you'll find yourself really moving on all cylinders, 8 cylinders, and you'll find things moving smoothly for you. That glimpse of excellence shows you that it can be done. And so what we strive to do is make the gaps in between those times working in your sweet spot shorter and shorter. So you're in your sweet spot longer and longer. Number 3 is becoming a quick learner. Finding out how to learn. One of the things that I do is find out how to ingest information on a download basis. A lot of times, even my books in my classes, I will find and see if those things are on audio. And so not only will I read it, but in my time of driving and commuting, I'll listen to the book on audio. To do that helps me to become a much more quick learner. Number 4 is sustaining growth. What do we do? A lifelong learner and a person that develops themselves, they're on a constant quest. And so they're putting up parameters and setting things up so they can sustain their growth. They're not regressing, but they're making sure they're progressing and moving forward to a better place. Number 5 is feedback. Getting feedback, getting insight and wisdom from other people to improve, to make sure that we're doing the right things and we're focusing on the right things and we're not focusing on the small things or the minutia of the information, but we're moving and making the critical things critical. Another way of continuing, one of the things that we said in the last slide is sustaining growth. And in order to develop a strength culture and sustain growth, you have to get that feedback. And part of that feedback is avoiding burnout. In order to sustain growth, you can't be burned out. You have to be careful. One of the things that we learned in urban leadership is self-care. You have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. One of the things when you ride a plane or you're in an airplane, they give you some instructions that if the cabin loses pressure, that oxygen mask will fall, and they tell you to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you put it on someone else. So you must take care of yourself in order to be viable and strong enough to take care of others. So developing a strength culture is vital. And that takes making sure you're avoiding burnout. Now we're almost done, but I want to quickly go over some things that will help us develop through failure. Some of our biggest growth spurts are in the midst of failure. And so developing through failure, and the first one, this is really good. Admitting your mistakes. We got to lay aside pride. The Bible says pride comes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. The Bible says also that God resists the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. And so when we admit our mistakes, we're putting ourselves in position to receive grace from God, and we can grow. Number 2 is accepting responsibility. That when we make a mistake, don't try to blame, don't play the blame game. Don't try to point out everybody else's mistakes. Accept the responsibility. And then number 3, make restitution. Make it right. Make it right. Admit your mistakes, accept responsibility, and make restitution. And then reassess your life vision and values. Make adjustments. Make mental and emotional and spiritual adjustments. When you look at that process, the next one is, okay, I need to make some adjustments. I thought I was right, but I was wrong. So I need to make some adjustments in what I see, my vision and my values. And next one is mourn your losses. Mourn your losses. So the mourn your losses is the aspect of things that when you make those mistakes, sometimes you lose. You do lose. You lose credibility. You may lose relationships. You may even lose your leadership influence. So just mourn that, but then don't allow it to debilitate you. Okay, number 2 is move to closure. Don't wallow around. Don't wallow around in the mistake. Allow God to minister to you in this place, in this place of humility. But allow God to minister to you, and He's not going to leave you in that place. He wants to bring that to a closure. And then accept direction. When we talked about receiving feedback, even in this time, accept direction. God will direct you. He may direct you with someone. He may bring someone with some wisdom and some insight into some things, or maybe the things you're dealing with. Begin to receive personal insight and allow God to give you some grace. And then reestablish your behavior, new behaviors. Reestablish, I got misspelled that, establish new. It's supposed to be new behaviors and accountabilities. So you're readjusting, and remember, reassessing your life vision and values really key into establishing new behaviors and accountabilities so you don't repeat the same mistake. So in conclusion, the discipline of self-development, which I hope all of us are allowing to be a part of our lifelong quest. The discipline of self-development is a lifelong quest towards personal improvement. It is not easy, but it is well worth it. Thank you for listening to my presentation.